He swallowed the evidence, and he brought it up to the police. These professional thieves just steal out in the open. And this kid learned really quickly about what happens if you botch a robbery. Let's find out the craziest robberies criminals do. Starting with number 7, simple choices. Richard Curtis from Austin, Texas, thought he had an easy score when he strolled into a Marco's Pizza demanding cash. Instead, he was served a butt-whoopin' pizza with an extra side of whoopin'. Curtis walked into the Marco's around 7 p.m. and handed an employee a note telling them to keep their mouth shut and open the drawer. To emphasize the point, he lifted his shirt, showing off a firearm in his waistband. Instead of handing over the cash, the employee took matters into his own hands. Literally. Grabbing Curtis and putting him in a submission hold as a coworker called the cops. It's unclear whether Curtis stepped too close or if the worker reached over the counter, but either way, the would-be thief suddenly found himself in a fight he wasn't expecting. Once the employee had engaged, that's when the manager stepped in. While Curtis was subdued by the employee, he grabbed the firearm from Curtis's waistband. And in what might have been a really bad decision brought on by years of repressed anger and frustration from working in the customer service industry, he tried to let a few go. Fortunately for Curtis, for whatever reason, the firearm didn't go off. But the manager, whose managerial rage wasn't satisfied, used the handle to smash it down on Curtis like he's the like button for YouTube videos. Curtis, realizing things weren't going his way, continued to struggle until the manager grabbed a kitchen knife and held him under threat of severe consequences. Curtis wisely chose to chill out and waited for the cops to arrive. One employee ended up with a head injury, but Curtis got off worse. Smacked around, humiliated, and arrested for aggravated robbery, but no further developments have been reported. However, one thing's clear. Marco's Pizza serves two things: pizza and revenge. And they're both served hot. Number 6, the Robbery Tour. Vadar-Ghimes and Zinca Agafitei, a married couple with a penchant for shoplifting, spent a few months on a crime spree that racked up nearly £50,000 in stolen jewelry across the UK. Their favorite tactic was good old-fashioned distraction theft, getting store employees to retrieve items while they quietly pocketed thousands in gold and watches. Over the course of a few weeks, they hit stores all over the UK, targeting high-value items with a precision that suggests plenty of practice. It all started when Agafitei pocketed a Rolex while an employee fetched another watch they pretended to be interested in. A month later, the duo pulled the same trick in Sussex, distracting a staff member long enough for Vadar-Ghimes to sneak a bracelet from a cabinet. Shortly after that, they were in another shop, knocking over a display stand as a cover for stealing over £20,000 worth of bracelets. But they didn't just stop at jewelry. One time, they turned their attention to an elderly woman. Agafitei watched her enter her PIN at a cash machine while Vadar-Ghimes later somehow snatched her card and used it to withdraw £700. Their biggest haul and last known theft came from a place called the Gold Shop, where they casually swiped £15,000 worth of gold chains in broad daylight. Despite their attempts to stay ahead of the law, police eventually tracked the couple down. Their arrests came after investigators pieced together CCTV footage from their 5 known thefts, which clearly showed the same man and woman committing the crimes. The pair pleaded guilty to multiple theft and burglary charges and were sentenced to 27 months each. Given their history of similar crimes across Europe, it's likely that this isn't their first time behind bars. And we doubt it'll be their last. Number 5. Plan fell through. Atlanta police are on the hunt for a pair of mass thieves who pulled off a goofy-looking but successful heist at a check-cashing business, making off with an estimated $150,000. The two suspects didn't just stroll in like your average robbers. Instead, they appeared to fall through the ceiling like a couple of doofs. Security footage showed the duo crashing into the store, hiding behind glass barriers, and then forcing an employee to open a backroom safe. But they weren't alone. Police suspect a third accomplice who acted as a lookout helped coordinate the whole thing. Investigators believe the crew likely used power tools to cut through the roof before making their entrance. And by the way, don't forget to click that subscribe button and make sure you also click the bell to turn on all notifications so you don't miss any critical knowledge to defend yourself from criminals. Anyways, once inside, they wasted no time. They ordered the store manager to send away a customer before leading her to the safe, where they stuffed stacks of cash into a pink and black duffel bag. Not content with just the safe's haul, they searched for more money, ultimately tying up the manager in a bathroom before making their escape through a back door. Adding to the chaos, police also investigated a separate burglary earlier that morning where a suspect broke into a business through a bathroom wall, causing a pipe to burst Kool-Aid Man style. Whether the two crimes are connected is still unclear. As of the release of this video, no one has been arrested. While the plan was a good one, they got behind the glass and walked out with a duffel bag full of cash. They didn't exactly stick the landing, like Mission Impossible. With the clear footage and Crime Stoppers involved, hopefully they get brought in soon. Number 4, second chances. Max Wade is back in the headlines. The same guy who stole Guy Fieri's Lamborghini and then tried to bump off a romantic rival. We covered his wild story before, but now there's an update. Wade, who was sentenced to life, has been granted parole. If you don't remember, Wade was running a fake ID operation at just 14, making ridiculous amounts of money. But he wanted to impress some girl he really liked and thought a flashy car would be the best way to do that. The thing was, his fake ID business was making him a lot of money, but it wasn't making Lambo money. And girls like Lambos. So he rappelled into a luxury car dealership, stole a bright yellow one that, unbeknownst to him, belonged to Guy Fieri. But there was a problem. The girl just wasn't interested in him and was already dating someone else. Such is life, right? Well, Wade didn't really take that lightly, so he escalated things in the worst way. Armed and dressed in black while riding a motorcycle, he tracked down the girl's boyfriend, pulled up alongside his truck, and opened fire. What he didn't realize was that the girl was also in the passenger seat. By some miracle, no one was hurt. And while Wade got away that night, his days were numbered. Investigators linked Wade to the incident through surveillance footage, which helped them track down a storage unit he had rented. Inside, they found the stolen Lamborghini, the motorcycle, the tool he used in the fight, and enough tactical gear to make a SWAT team jealous, including police uniforms and radio jammers. Wade went to trial at 19, and the judge wasn't playing around. His crimes were so extreme that he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 21 years. He had already been behind bars for a year by then, having been arrested at 17. But in 2021, after serving about 8 years, a judge reduced his sentence by 10 years, significantly moving up his earliest parole eligibility. So instead of serving at least 21 years, he was granted parole in 2024 after about 11 years and is now free. During his hearing, Wade admitted he went after the guy not out of jealousy, but because the guy had insulted him online. He said he wanted to maintain his criminal image, which is definitely one of the worst reasons to attempt to do what he did. Prosecutors pushed hard to keep him locked up, arguing that he was still dangerous. But the parole board approved his release. Wade has since walked free, saying that he hopes to work in cybersecurity. Stashing an arsenal in a storage unit and openly admitting he wanted to maintain a criminal image is, at the very least, alarming. It makes you wonder, what was the plan? And why all the cop gear? If no one had caught him, where would this have gone? At the same time, he was just a teenager. No matter how calculated or mature someone seems at that age, their brain is still developing. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it does matter. Now, at 29, Wade has been given a second chance. Whether releasing him was the right call is hard to say. His crimes were extreme, but in the end, he was being punished more for what could have happened than what actually did happen. Only time will tell if he proves the parole board right or wrong. Number 3, the cheese heist. Neal's Yard Dairy in London fell victim to a massive cheese heist, losing 950 wheels of artisanal cheddar worth nearly $400,000. The fraudsters posed as wholesalers from a well-known French retailer, tricking the company into handing over more than 48,000 pounds of premium cheese before vanishing without a trace. We guess you could say it was a curds and getaway. Don't worry, we won't fill this up with cheese puns. We'll be Gouda about it. The stolen wheels, including Hafod, Westcombe, and Pitchfork cheddar, prized among cheese connoisseurs. Despite the financial hit, Neal's Yard honored their commitments and reimbursed the small-scale cheesemakers who supplied the goods, which is a classy show of integrity and good business. The company hasn't revealed exactly how they got duped, but the scam has left a gaping hole in their finances. Now they're warning their peers to be on the lookout for suspiciously sourced cloth-bound cheddar in 22-pound and 52-pound wheels. Patrick Holden, whose farm produces half-fed cheddar, admitted the artisan cheese world relies heavily on trust, making this scam particularly jarring. Tom Calver, another cheesemaker affected by the theft, pointed out that the stolen cheese took nearly 3 years to produce, from growing feed for the cows to aging the cheddar to perfection. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police arrested a 63-year-old man in connection with the theft, but later released him on bail. As of the release of this video, the stolen cheese remains missing. And hey, we're not saying we condone cheese theft, but we get it. Cheese is awesome. As far as we know, most cheese lovers are generally decent folks, which makes this whole thing a little perplexing. Here's hoping these dairy bandits get caught soon. Number 2, fishing for gold. An unidentified man in Melbourne, Australia, possibly Mr. Krabs in the flesh, decided to take his love for fishing to the next level by using a rod to reel in a Versace necklace from a high-end fashion store. That's right. Instead of catching dinner, he spent 3.5 hours trying to snag an $800 necklace from Le Style, a boutique in the city. Security footage showed the man arriving at the store just after 2 a.m., equipped with 2 fishing rods. Authorities believe he had already made a hole in the storefront window earlier, then returned later to finish the job. And by finish the job, they mean standing outside in the middle of the night, repeatedly trying to hook a necklace off a mannequin's neck. It wasn't quite a snatch and run. No, this was an endurance test. The man spent hours awkwardly maneuvering his fishing rod through the tiny hole, attempting to lift the necklace. Eventually, he succeeded. The store's owner, Steve Adagrati, admitted he was both shocked and kind of impressed. The whole thing was so ridiculous that even police acknowledged they had never seen anything like it before. Unfortunately for the makeshift jewelry angler, the Medusa necklace probably wasn't worth what he thought. It was valued around $500. According to Adagrati, its flashy design made it look more expensive than it actually was. And despite leaving behind a fishing hook as evidence, it didn't seem to matter. Authorities released footage of the incident and a description of the suspect, but as far as anyone knows, he got away with it. The score wasn't anything major, but it worked. So he's out there somewhere celebrating his weird little win. Number 1. Oh, by the way, Jathan Gilder from Houston, Texas, took an unusual approach to jewelry theft. He tried to stash the goods inside his own stomach. It was a bold strategy, Cotton, but not exactly well thought out. If he wanted it to work, the least he could do was keep quiet about it. But of course, he didn't. One day, Gilder walked into a Tiffany & Co. store in Orlando, Florida, pretending to be a representative for an Orlando Magic player. Apparently, he thought name-dropping an unspecified NBA star would be enough to gain access to high-end merchandise. It was. The store staff immediately led him into a VIP room where he was shown 2 pairs of diamond earrings and a ring, all worth over $1 million. Then, in what wasn't a very well thought out plan, or maybe it was for Gilder, he grabbed the earrings and made a break for it. A store employee tried to stop him, but he managed to escape, leaving the $587,000 ring behind. He then fled the mall where the store was located, jumped into a getaway car, and sped off. But it didn't take long for authorities to track him down using toll records and surveillance footage, which are all over Florida. When Florida Highway Patrol stopped Gilder's car hours later, they found price tags and packaging from the stolen jewelry scattered inside. However, the earrings were nowhere to be found, and that was because Gilder ate them. Which, by the way, sounds like a bad idea, doesn't it? No matter how those earrings leave his body, or even if he just leaves them in there, it's going to be painful. Anyway, once in custody, he made things worse by openly wondering if he could be charged for what was in his stomach. He didn't have to say anything, mind you. He could have just kept his trap shut. Not that it would have helped much, since investigators already suspected what had happened, but still, if you're arrested, shut up. Everyone knows that. A body scan confirmed their suspicions, revealing foreign objects inside Mr. Blabbermouth, which turned out to be the missing earring. So the answer, of course, was yes. Yes, he was going to be charged. As of the release of this video, Gilder is facing grand theft and robbery charges, and authorities obviously had to still wait for the natural recovery of the earrings. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't his first run-in with the law. Gilder was previously arrested for robbing another Tiffany & Co. store in Texas back in 2022, and he had an absurd 48 outstanding warrants in Colorado. Despite everything, Gilder still had the nerve to whine that he should have just thrown them out the window. But really, he should have just stopped talking altogether, because at that point, he was just a rambling idiot digging himself in deeper. Click to watch one of these next videos.